Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Tim Sedano. It's your favorite that's my phone going up. It's your favorite paranormal investigator. This is Paranormal Insight, and welcome to the show today. In a very apropos, so sorry, I'm doing my phone thing over here so it doesn't bug everybody. Wow, the capture is not doing good today. Let me try making an adjustment on that. There we go. Sorry, Mike Shadow. Anyway, today we're talking about UFOs experiences that happened around Christmas time. And one of the things I knew about one case, but I didn't know about another. And I was super excited to find out that there was more than one. So let's start up with the can't talk, least known one. First off, hello and welcome. And I didn't announce this one, so the traffic might be a little light today in the commentary. But suffice it to say, I'm on the air right now. In fact, I'm going to do a little Instagram. You're going to watch me do some stuff. So bear with me while I tell everybody I'm online. This should be interesting. I guess I'll just do it. Let's see if it likes it. No, not doing that. It's fun to do things completely random. It really is. Gosh, there's so much stuff on here. Is this a reel? Might be a reel. Is this a story? Maybe it's a story. Okay. Here's hoping this works, kids. You're going to see me both places at once. I'll do that. It's just a little... Okay. No, I don't care. Just do it. Nope. Okay, we'll discard that. Okay, my apologies for wasting your time. We're just going to keep on going. So the first story is from your favorite place and mine. Well, it's my favorite place because I actually have family there. But I'm talking about, let's see if I can get to the right slide first as we get there. Sorry, I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen. It's just me not doing the best thing here. Okay, here we go. Nope. Slides only. There we go. Lovely. Hide that. Ta-da! Okay, I will now share. Okay, so your favorite place of mine, Scotland, is where this story starts. The year is 1977. And in 1977, there was nothing happened. There we go. There was a couple. And their names were Fiona, and I just suddenly lost all my notes. Fiona and Edward McAlister. Now, Fiona and Edward are a lovely young couple. They have a nice little country plot out there in Scotland. Not a lot of people around. And suddenly they're hit with this sound. To hear it described, it's like when you get your ears start ringing because you're getting that pressurization, equalization kind of thing, a high-pitched sound. But apparently this just is overwhelmingly there, and it shatters the tranquility of the place. And so the tone's still there, but they're starting to be able to bear up with it, against a little more. And they look out the window. And when they look out the window, they see a craft. Nope, that's not them. I'm sorry. There's also something else, and that's why I have this picture there. The sound is actually vibrating the house. And that's what the little coffee cup there represents. So the house is rattling, like resonating. So are their bodies, and they have this weightlessness kind of vibe to them. That sounds going off in their ears, and they look out the window. That's a wrong slide, Tim. That's okay. I kind of gave it away, but that's right. And they see this saucer just sitting there over to their barn, and it's casting a light of some sort across the barn. And then suddenly everything goes away. The light the light the thing was emitting disappears. The craft disappears, and they're out. When they wake up the next day, they're in the exact same position as they were when they were looking out the window, except on the floor. Okay, most people would assume abduction. However, being dropped in the exact same spot where they actually collapsed, sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the abduction scenario. And I wish I had Joe Montalto here to talk about this more. But it could be that maybe they were placed back where they were supposed to be placed, but who knows? Because sometimes people are displaced. Like they'll end up a mile away from their car, for example. That's happened a few times in the past with abduction cases. Sometimes they will be miles and miles and miles away. Like on the opposite side of the U.S. That's happened a couple of times before as well. You know, you've been missing for 3 days. Where are you? I'm in Connecticut. What are you doing out there? You live in Nevada. You know, that kind of thing. So to have them drop where they were, I don't know, for me, just kind of rang a little bit eerie. Pardon me. But the cool part is, if you want to call it a cool part, when they go out the next day, and I gave this part away a little bit, they see these symbols carved into the roof of their barn. Strange alien glyphs. And they are like flabbergasted. They don't know what to make of this. And also, as you see over here, there's a huge circular burn mark that looks like where this thing landed. Potentially landed. One thing I find interesting about burn marks, just to take a little detour on that particular point, is Joe Montalto has said in the past that the U.S. military is capable of mimicking abductions. And, in fact, my abduction dream could be related to a U.S. military thing. And this is pure speculation, take, all this with a grain of salt and the whole thing. And I like life, and I'm doing pretty good. So, don't kill me. Just to put it out there. But one of the things that's interesting about burn marks is that would imply thrust. Like the need to get, to throw down rockets of some sort just to blast off. And most UFOs, when they have been, or saucer types and all that fun stuff, very few of them have actually left behind burn marks. Perhaps radiation scarring, where their landing gear, for lack of a better term, has hit the earth, and maybe there's some radiation there. But this was pretty much like the photo shows. This was, and you see me trying to save everything, don't you? How funny is that? No, you don't. But it went gray. It went gray for a reason. So I'm sorry. In a mad dash to get this done today, some things were not saved. Seg 57 slides. Okay, so yeah. So here is our burn mark over here. So my guess is, if there were burn marks, this could have been either, I don't know if it was an American operation per se, but it was definitely, I think, a man-made operation, or perhaps aliens are still using rockets at one point in 1977. Who really knows? Honestly, the speculation goes through the roof. And thank you for that heart, by the way. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to pass the word along. Chat is open, just so you all know. So we have this burn mark deal here, and that really concerns me because this says this was potentially an Earth-based operation that knocked these people out, carved this weird thing in their barn, and pretty much goes from there. One thing that they did which surprised me is this. The McAlisters themselves actually, and I'll go over, just a minute for now on this. The McAlisters actually didn't say anything. They didn't tell a soul. They buried this. Husband goes up on the roof, paints over the tiles. The markings, rather. Wow. The burn mark gets covered with spare dirt so no one can see it. They hide it for decades. Remember, they're a young couple in 1977. They have kids not too long after that. Those kids grow up. Let's give them 20 years. They have their own kids. 90s, maybe 2000, early aughts, early 2000s. We have the grandkids recounting this story. Finally, to the media, or at least it hits a media outlet. Someone was maybe told it at a party. We really don't know the details of how the story actually got out. But Grandma and Grandpa McAlister, back in the day, buried it. They did not want to be labeled kooks. They didn't want to have any, they like the privacy, so they buried it. And the story only came out maybe 20 some odd years ago, give or take, from the grandchildren who recounted the story. So that is one of a couple of different Christmas stories regarding UFOs. So Christmas UFOs. By the way, we don't have an exact date when this happened. We just know it happened in 1977. I think they all said it was before Christmas. So, I don't know. We have 24 days before Christmas Day to figure out when that may have happened. But, I mean, the level of cover-up, and it wasn't that they didn't have any outside influences, really, other than the potential ridicule to make them act and cover this whole thing up, which I find positively remarkable. Imagine the state of mind you have to be in to not only experience what you experienced and things go in and all this, you're struck to the floor. Okay, you are struck to the floor by a piercing sound, catch a glimpse of a flying vehicle, a saucer, over your barn, and when you wake up the next day, you see that. Can you imagine that? I mean, I can. I mean, having visuals helps. P.S. All AI. I didn't. This is not a aerial photo. But then you say, we want none of it, and they cover it up. I mean, wow. And they had to go through some trouble to do that. That's a big roof that this guy has to paint over or otherwise obscure. And from what I understand from the recounting, is that these were not painted on like they kind of show here. It was etched in like with a laser. So, yeah, good times. Good times. So there we have it. The McAlister case in Scotland, 1977, which is just it's the 70s too. That's another thing. Huge UFO flap happening across the globe. Many flaps, but equaling a larger UFO flap. Suddenly, people were reporting things left, right, and center, getting documents. And this is from the 50s into the 70s, but the 70s seemed to be really when it all kind of exploded. We're post moon landing, we're post Vietnam War in 1977. Or conflict, or however it is you want to put that. Pardon me. But nonetheless, there's this ramp up in UFO documentation and activity that is showing a ramp up in activity just across the globe too. I think around that time there's a couple of different nuclear facility shutdowns. Not facility, nuclear missile facility shutdowns by UFO vehicles. Wow, I mean, the 70s was just rife with this kind of thing, and they're making movies about it, and they're making, there's, I think, 79, a couple years after this event over there, is when Hangar 18 comes out? That's a guess. I can't remember off the top of my head. Hangar 18 was kind of cool, too, because it dealt with the space shuttle, and it dealt with UFO encounters with the space shuttle, and basically it was kind of a retelling of another encounter that happened way earlier in the space program, but they modernized it. But still, the only thing they kept real or on par or factual, I guess is the word, is the name of the hangar, Hangar 18. Reportedly, in reality, at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. In the film, I don't think they put it there. I think they put it somewhere else. Maybe Area 51. But Hangar 18 is the actual piece of Air Force and or ufology that stuck out in that film, that survived, I guess is the word. So, but the McAlisters, I mean, the McAlister case is weird. It's short. Okay. Grandma and Grandpa McAlister did not want to give anything away or be bugged by it at all. So, and it was a few years after they both passed that grandkids said, okay, we can tell the story now. And that's just it. They buried the evidence. So there's really no story. So it might be worth, perhaps some of our Scottish investigators out there might be worth checking into the McAlister farm area, or if it's even still there. I mean, they may have torn the whole place down, rebuilt it, redeveloped it. I really don't know. It would be worth checking out personally, I think. Or maybe I'll take a trip out there one of these days. But yeah. Okay, so let's move on to our next story. This one is this one's one of my favorites. If there's a UFO case out there in the world, it's this one. And you may recognize the name. It starts out with lights in the sky and in the forest, as you may note the trees here. Now these lights are just hanging there for a while, and then they move over an Air Force base in the UK. Hold on, I'm not giving it away yet. You probably know what I'm talking about, but hang in there. What they report rather, is these lights come over the base and start scanning like with these rasterized laser beam looking things. And the lights turn different colors. They're turning like red and orange and stuff like that as they're scanning where they keep the nuclear missiles. The canisters, really, not the canisters, I'm sorry, the fuselages, before they get turned into missiles and have the rocketry attached to them, but the fuselages where they keep the nuclear material for, So that's a big problem. And we just talked about how nuclear missile facilities have been tampered with in the past by UFO activity. So, yeah. The name of this place is Rendlesham Forest. Yep, it's that case. And this did happen on, let me double check my notes because I have notes. They happened on, let me get there. It just says December. I think it was December 26th. Yeah, it is. And it happened for 2 or 3 nights. December 26th to the 28th in the year 1980. So it's 3 years after the McAlisters, and it's not that far away from Scotland. This is in Suffolk, England. This is at the U.S. Air Force Base at Woodbridge, sometimes called Camp Rendlesham, but actually Rendlesham is the forest right next to the airbase. And so they see these lights, and they're doing weird stuff, and they're parking and scanning, and there's visible beams of light coming down from these lights, these orbs, that seem to be scanning where they're keeping the fuselages for these missiles before they get capped with the rocketry parts. And that's a big problem. So they say, what's going on? What is happening? So, the personnel stationed there, everybody witnesses it. There's no covering it up. Everyone sees it. It happens at night. So the daytime guys are fast asleep, but the night shift, everybody knows it. And when they sound the general alert, everybody knows it anyway, even the daytime guys, because everyone gets called to readiness, to red alert, if you prefer. But what happens specifically on the night of December 26th in 1980, these lights come in, they scan everything, and then they disappear again out into the forest, and they go skimming through the forest, going in and out, blah, blah, blah. And what they thought at first was one craft, like you see here in the slide, was actually, it broke apart, went to different parts, and then came back together at the other end of this little gap forest. I call it a gap forest just because it feels like a gap, but it comes out all together and then gone, disappears. So we have 2 people involved in this sighting that kind of are, staples. And this is a AI rendition. So these 2 guys, let's see if I have another one. There we go. So these are AI renditions of these dudes. This is not what they look like. They got the insignia wrong. I mean, the uniforms, I had to beg AI to come close. So everyone has boonies now for some reason. But the gentlemen involved, according to their actual reports, are Sergeant Jim Peniston, and Staff Sergeant John Burroughs. They're the first ones to go out and investigate. I hit the wrong button. There we go. They're the first ones to go out and investigate. And let me go here. So they are sent. It's like, figure out what's going on. And they're sent out to investigate because I believe it is on the second night of the 27th, they're just seeing lights in the forest again. And they don't want to repeat. So they go out, they search a big, dense forest trying to figure out what this thing is. And what they find is an object, kind of triangular or kite-shaped, and it's smooth, and it's black, and it's emitting a soft hum. Okay, we already have a parallel. The McAlisters heard a hum, but for them it was piercing, and maybe it's what knocked them out, because sound can be made to do that, render a human unconscious. So it's humming. It's not hurting them, obviously, but they report it. And one of them actually has a voice dictation recorder. So basically, it's a Walkman of the 80s, but you can record to it, not just play. So they have a dictation machine there. I think that's what they called it. It was just a recorder, about, maybe slightly chunkier than the cell phone here. And, about yay thick, and put a cassette tape in. So he's out there, he's recording things, and he's saying, okay, we see this, we're going so many yards, and here's the thing, here's this object, this kite looking thing, this triangular angled kite looking thing that they find. And I'm sorry these slides are out of order, but they kind of are. And there's the kite looking thing. Okay, I will say AI did its best. This is the closest I could get to their description. So, for the time being, this is what they find. Now, there were not this many dudes, and they were not modern military. Remember, this is the 80s. They didn't have anything this slick back then as far as uniforms go. And this would be a special forces team anyway, just by the looks of it. But I digress. So, let me get over to this thing, because I think that's more fun. So our guys, our people here are dictating what they're finding. Remember, it's just two of them. It's not 7 guys like there are here. 6 guys like there are here. This is just 2 of them. So take away a couple of them in your imagination. Again, AI just wasn't totally cooperating with me. But no, not bad. So they're out there, and they're doing the investigation, and mind you, no video cameras, just voice stuff. And they go on, and they say, oh, okay, we're seeing this weird craft, and they actually go out and they touch it. Brave person. I don't know why that's there. But they go out and they touch it. And this guy's got 6 fingers because he's polydactyl. AI didn't. But, they got the ship right. So we have a polydactyl guy in the AI world. Good times. That just tickles me to no end. But, and they actually touch it, and they say, oh yeah, it's smooth, it's weird, and this is the beginning of a series of encounters that would just baffle everyone, because it just is such a strange case in the first place. I mean, first it's lights, okay? They go out there and they see these lights darting all over the place, scanning their nuclear material and facilities and the missiles themselves. And what they're noticing finally is really just beyond a glow that this thing is giving off. And I don't know if it was orange or yellow or not. I don't personally recall the story as to what color it was. It was just a glow where no glow should be, because this thing looks solid. Oh, beg pardon. But, sorry, when I talk too much, I get yawny. But, not to say, anyway. There was a joke there, and it was too stupid, I'm going to pass it up. But, and, yeah, I think it was Burroughs who touched it. Says, oh, that's kind of cool. And almost, I think he makes a comment where he says it almost feels like skin. Okay, we've heard that before too. That's interesting. But that's really the only. Okay, there was a glow with the other thing in Scotland with the McAlisters, but for them it was just pretty stark and burning things into our barn's roof. So I'll give that two things in common: the sound and the glow, both of which are severely diminished in intensity compared to the McAlister case. So our soldiers here are getting the soft version. Maybe they learned the lesson in 3 or 4 years, and they describe the craft. Or I think Burroughs is the one, the recorder. He describes it and says it's about 2 to 3 meters wide, has symbols on it that we don't know what it means, and it seems to be hovering ever so slightly off the ground. And or if it has landing gear, they didn't really inspect. They didn't, it's bad enough one guy touched it. And I think they kept their distance otherwise. And they said, well, if it's not hovering, it's on some sort of mechanism that, a landing mechanism closer under the body. But it looks like it's floating. Oh, beg your pardon. Talkie yawn. Excuse me. So, the object I'm reading. So, it doesn't look like whatever this object is, it didn't disturb anything. There's no, it didn't crash because there's no broken trees, no skid in the earth, nothing like that. So, as they continue to dictate and explore what this thing is, they also note that this thing at the time didn't bear a resemblance to any known aircraft, military, or civilian. They made that note in their tape. You know what? It wasn't Burroughs who touched it. It was Penniston. He's the one who touches the craft surface. And it was warm and smooth, and it was unlike metal or any metal he'd encountered because it had a kind of a tingle. It gave off almost like an electric shock is the way I hear it, but there was a tingling sensation whenever you touched the metal. And I think he would later say it almost resembled skin. If you touch someone and you have that, you know what it is to touch someone, you have that warmth to it, like a body heat. It's kind of crazy. Benson claimed to have experienced strange dreams and memory lapses after touching this thing. And in fact, Burroughs has to kind of half drag him out at one point, guide him out because suddenly he's loopy. Penniston is. And so Burroughs and Penniston exit the forest, make their report, and a second team is sent out. And that's kind of where we see, these guys. So a bigger team is sent out. The thing's still there. And, a second team is sent out. The thing is not there at all. So erase the ship from this scene and left in its place. Wow, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. There we go. Left in its place are three, and they're more equidistant than this, but are three little holes left in the earth where this thing apparently rested. And over these little potholes specifically, they find elevated spikes and radiation beyond the background. Nothing too damaging, but at the same time elevated enough that you go, oh, okay, that's a hot spot. Stay away from it. And that's kind of where we run into another quasi-similarity between this case and the McAlisters. With the exception, you recall the big burn hole with the McAlister. Okay, I hit the wrong button again. With the big burn hole, let me get out of here. Big burn hole with the McAlister case. Okay, big char mark, Mr. McAlister, Grandpa McAlister, whatever you want to call him, buries it. Okay, and apparently it was about that big, so this is roughly to scale. And Whereas here in Rendlesham, I'll get to all that in a sec. These are so out of order. We only had three little holes, three spike marks. So apparently, this thing landed and produced its own tripod of legs to land on, therefore removing the theory that it was hovering, although not completely eliminating it. It came to a rest. It was powered down. It was just sitting there. And so the bigger team goes back, finds this stuff. There is evidence of radiation. And later on, day 2, I believe, I think this is the 28th, more lights in the sky. But this time everyone's seeing them in the nearby town and all that fun stuff. So not only, and they're changing different colors and they're darting around and they're doing all kinds of crazy, crazy things. And I think that's where this slide comes in. Haha. That, or actually, there's a better version. There we go. We'll look at this one. So there's all these lights darting around and they're doing crazy acrobatics that no aerial fun, no aerial anything, not even remote control. We didn't have drones back in 1980, kids. So it wasn't that. Not even remote control airplanes could pull those kind of maneuvers, and these things are darting in and out. Excuse me. And it is nuts. It is crazy. And people are just, really distracted and a little concerned about what's going on. And it's not that they zip and zoom around, but they also, boom, stop on a dime and hover there for a while. And then, boom, they dart away. And this display continues for a few nights during this entire span. It doesn't really reach the military bases. They're kind of isolated, and the local law enforcement isn't really talking to them, the military and the law enforcement are not talking to one another. So no one really knows what the other half is seeing, but everyone's seeing the lights in the forest on both sides of this. And I call it a gap forest. It's not. It's my term for it. It's this forest. It's a fair patch of trees, man. It's a big size, but on one side is the Air Force Base, and on the other, like a few hills over, is a town. But you can still see the forest, right? Not hills. I said hills. A few. I don't know where hills came from. Not too far on the other side of that forest is a town. Ignore the hills part. No, forget it. Forget that part. But they go on and they make these reports. I was like, oh my gosh. When certain soldiers take leave, at one point they go to the town, they hang out, they go to the pub, and they start hearing stories. This is later on, like January, February, March, something like that. And they start hearing the same stories. Oh, I was there for that. We had something happen over there. And probably someone gets a nudge in the ribs and like, don't talk about it. Remember, it's classified. I was like, yeah, but they saw it too. How classified can it be? Some people get. But nonetheless, now it's a bigger event. But let's rewind time a little bit. Let's go to the second night. Let's go to December 27th. The phenomena persists. Lights in the forest, darting all over the place. Weird stuff is happening. More people in the night shift are reporting it. And it's getting intense. And the frequency of these sightings is happening like almost hourly. So now they're on a heightened alert. They were already, and now they're even more heightened. So enter the CEO. I think he's the CEO, or he might be second in command of everything. He's I'm sorry. He's at Bentwater, not Water Ridge. Water Ridge? Oh, shoot. Now I'm blanking on the thing. I had to rewind my notes. I couldn't find it. So, enter Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt and his patrol. Now, he's a deputy base commander at RAF Bentwaters, not too far from Water Ridge. And this is the British now, not the Americans. And They have, I think they have an adjoining runway, so they both use the same set of runways for their operations. But one side's American, the other side's British, and I think they interact. But anyway, I think that's the layout. That's personal recall. I don't have a map of it, unfortunately, but I believe that's the case. So, and they did that a few times back in the day. So Holt, Lieutenant Colonel Holt, leads an official patrol into the Rendlesham Forest the following December 27th, where all this weird activity is happening, and the people in the town see it, the people in the Air Force bases see it, and it's weird, and everyone's exhausted. So RAF Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt is going to get to the bottom of it. And he takes a team out there, and they got everything. They got their flashlights and their Geiger counters and their radio communications. And his team continues to document everything they're seeing. And they're seeing the same thing the Americans saw. Because I think there's some limited shared reporting, since the Air Force Base, they both kind of share is affected. So they're, RAF says, okay, we're going to investigate it too. America says, go for it, your place. And during his patrol, he's also making audio recordings. And they capture the radio communications, the ambient sound, obviously, and his direct narration of things unfold, similar to what Burroughs did, because Burroughs had his tape as well. And he's kind of calm. Suddenly the lights appear in front of him, and he's recording as all this is happening, and he's calm yet tense. And there's this, if you've ever heard the tapes, it's amazing, because, oh God, we see them right in front of us. And he goes really quiet, and he calls out over the radio about something about goes silent, or, mum's the word or something like that. And it just shuts everybody up, radio silence from this point until I think he says radio silence too. So everyone's watching this stuff. And I got a slide that depicts that. There it is. So everyone's out there watching this stuff. And they're tense, and they're on guard, and they're going, oh my gosh, look at this crazy stuff happening in front of me. And Holt is recording his thing. Okay, now we see 5 yellow. I hit the wrong button again. Now we see 5 yellow lights and 2 red lights. And they keep changing colors here and there and all that fun stuff. And his, with the British accent, of course. And I can't really do one all that well, but you get the point. So they're super calm about it, and they're talking, and they're going, oh my gosh. Strange, just crazy stuff. So, usual reports at this of that type of phenomena: strange glows, odd maneuvers, unconventional aerobatics. They're overwhelmed. They're scared. They're witnesses to this weird stuff. And after the lights vanish, they discover more of these circular indentations on the floor, where they believe another craft, if not the same craft, had landed. Or they could also be, that's where there was some confusion. They didn't know if they were seeing Burroughs and Pendleton's craft landing spot or not, because there was some discrimination between where Pendleton and Burroughs saw their craft and where they were finding these indentations, if I remember correctly. And that's not in my notes, unfortunately. But I think there was some discrepancy. It's like, oh, we found it over here. Oh, that's weird. The craft was over here, and and I don't think they're really sharing notes all that much, other than everybody looking up and seeing strange lights in the sky, scanning their stuff. So, you know, each military has their own responsibilities for their own countries. America is more or less a guest at that point, and they're not looking to step on toes. So I think reporting was limited between the two parties on that base. But nonetheless, after the fact, when things are, I don't know about declassified, but I think the British declassified it, and that forced the Americans to declassify it. Or the Americans just said, well, the British declassified it, and we are just, something happened. you know, Usual heavy redaction on everything else that was going on. So it's, oh, Heidi's here. I just saw you, Heidi. How you doing? I'm sorry, that was 15 minutes ago. I have my slides up on my screen. My apologies, Heidi. It's so good to see you here. Thank you for the love, Boulder. I appreciate that. Let me get back to what I was saying. So maybe I'll just keep that up here versus. So I'm looking at two screens. So just I don't want to miss anyone else. And she forgives me. Oh, you're so sweet. Merry Christmas to you, darling. Or actually, do you celebrate Christmas, Heidi? I imagine you do, but I don't know if you do or not. But nonetheless, happy holidays. We'll go with that one. That's very universal. But anyway, going back to the story, so they're having all kinds of weird problems now. Not problems, but everyone's having basically the same experience. And they come to find this out later. The townspeople and the military folks on both sides of that airbase are having the exact. You know what? I'm thinking maybe it's a different airbase now all of a sudden. That's irrelevant. We have two air bases in very close proximity to each other. One U.S., one British, and they both investigate the Rendlesham Forest. Anyway, so let's get to. Okay, so we later find out the townspeople and the military folks are all having weird psychological, their effects are happening to them. They're disoriented all of a sudden. There's high anxiety, vivid dreams no one can really describe. And everybody, the townsfolk, the military guys, are on edge. They feel like they're being watched. If you've ever had that sensation of being watched, that's a scary feeling, especially when you know for certain eyes are on you. You get that a lot in the forest, especially if animals are watching you, even little critters. They're staring at you. And if you find their eyes at the same time, especially if it's a big old buck deer, that happened to me once, and he was like in the bushes on the other side of a very meager hedge, and he was just sitting there still as can be because I wandered into his feeding ground. And it was years ago when I was hiking, and he's making no noise, and then I see his ear go, how they flick off flies and stuff. And I look like this, and then he gets a little taller. You know how they do that? And you know how they do that, and it's like I see the antlers lower a little bit, then I very nonchalantly turn away, and I go, oh, look at the funny little things. Draw my attention away from the fact that I saw him. And I very calmly walk away. But knowing those eyes are on you is something else, let me tell you. Then finally, I get like, again, sorry for the side story. It turned into a mishmash episode. I get like not five, more like, yeah, okay, we'll go 5, maybe 10 yards away from him. And I snap my attention back, which is a foolish move. I never should have done it, but it worked to my advantage, fortunately. He spooks and runs up the hill. And so do about 5 or 6 other deer I didn't even know were there. Follow after him. And they gallop past him, and he stands guard, and then he follows after them further up the hill. So my quick and sudden predatory, I put in quotes, so quasi-predatory action spooked him, which is good, because getting gored by a deer would just not make my day. They do that, but only if they're backed into a corner or whatever, or something. So let's get back to UFOs and some fun stuff like that. So everybody in the town, the Air Force bases, are having these weird effects from these lights in the sky. It could be the fact that they witness weird stuff. It could be any number of things, but every single one of these people, for the most part, are having very vivid dreams about weird stuff. And it's concerning everybody, because suddenly nothing was really wrong until these lights showed up in the sky, and now everyone's on edge and weird and having weird stuff. So let's take a quick look at I don't have a slide to reflect this, but okay, I'll get to that in a sec. Lieutenant Holt's memo, written shortly after his incident and after he detailed the sequence of events via his recorder. And there's a memo that goes out that's circulated within the military, both the British and the American channel, through British and American channels. And later on, it gets leaked to the public too. The document is okay. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself there for a sec. So he writes this detailed report of what they saw in the forest and what they experienced, and how things, especially that moment where, oh gosh, they're right in front of us, about 10 feet away, and they're turning different colors, and they're casting strange light beams, and we're staying as quiet as possible, and, we're going to wait and see what happens. Everyone's on edge. I have people waiting for my order to the fire, that kind of thing. It got really intense. So, after this is put out there, the UK Ministry of Defence gets involved and reviews the incident. Big pardon. Talking on. Reviews the incident, and the the Ministry of Defense says, you have some interesting experiences. We've talked to a few people on, the American base, the British base, in the town nearby. Yeah, that's cool. That's goofy. Let's just keep it under your hat for now. We're not calling it top secret. We're not calling it classified. We're not even really going to say anything about this. In fact, we're going to call this an open and shut case. You saw strange lights in the sky, the end. Because of a lack of evidence, according to them, their official report, the Defense Ministry, or Ministry of Defense, rather, to say not enough evidence was present to really consider diving into a full-blown investigation. Which, to me, speaks volumes, really. It's like, okay, so my guess is, and this is coming from a person who was, in a limited sense, part of the military and part of the government, as an individual who's experienced all that fun stuff. My guess is, I kind of understand how governments work, is what I'm trying to say. Ministry of Defense probably did conduct a very thorough investigation behind the scenes. Nothing official, and nothing that would be too terribly noticed by people. Like, they may have even posed as reporters and gone to the townsfolk or in the military folk when they're off duty in town on liberty or whatever they call it. I think that's a naval term, but when they're on leave and they go into town and hang out at the pub, I bet you anything they pose as reporters. Yeah, I'm just looking to get a little more insight into this, that, and the other thing about the lights in the Rendlesham forest. And it kind of, I think they probably found out more than, pardon me, than they possibly wanted to. Especially since most of the town folk and the military folk were reporting these strange psychological and physiological effects. Because some were just, they were disoriented and physically dizzy, which is crazy. That's a rarity. Only at Rendlesham did we, and actually that's not true. It's a rarity. Rendlesham and a few other cases report that, especially with a mass sighting by, well, at least dozens of people, we'll call it. There's that disorientation that kind of comes with having viewed all this activity. And it's weird. And a lot of people do report anxiety and vivid dreams as well. Speaking of vivid dreams, actually, you know what I may do? Let's see, where are we at here? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to take a station break / commercial break, and I'll see you all in 118 seconds. I think it is. Don't quote me on that. And we're going to do a quick little, like I said, station ID, and then we'll get back into the Rendlesham Forest case, because I think there's a lot to unpack and discover. So I'll see you all in a few seconds. This is the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 in the Gulf Coast. UPRN talkradio.com. Esoteric programming at its finest.
Long ago in the ancient world, the Tribus Omnis Lux, later known as the Tridents, were celebrated heroes, defenders of humanity against unspeakable monsters. Today, they continue that sacred duty in secret, hunting the dark evils that lurk just beyond the shadows. They are the Trident of Light.
Follow us on Instagram at paranormal.insight. Stay informed on upcoming shows, ask questions, and see what chilling paranormal stories we're following. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube at paranormal_insight. Click the live tab to see our latest videos. And we are back. I'm in the corner. There we go. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Christmas UFOs, segment 57 here on Paranormal Insight. My name's Tim Sedano, your favorite paranormal investigator, hosting this wonderful, wonderful episode. And thank you, Heidi, for welcoming me back. I promise I can talk. Sorry, Christmas party last night. I had a great time. It was fun. So I'm a little tired. But I digress. I'm not that tired because I love this. Again, this is my favorite UFO case, Rendlesham Forest. So when last we left off, the Brits and the UK Ministry of Defense and the Americans, more unofficially than not, pretty much swept Rendlesham under the rug. Never mind, they had dozens and dozens and dozens of witnesses, not only in the military sector, but in the private sector as well. Quick little hello to everyone who joined us on chat and who are watching us live and gave me that cool little heart. Really appreciate that. That's awesome. Getting back to what I was saying. So it's swept under the rug and it's largely forgotten. Largely, but not entirely. around, I think it was retirement. The retirement had kicked in. And I think it was Burroughs initially. Remember those two guys? Let me get back there real quick so I can show you what's going on. So you might remember those two guys, and I'll show you their pictures here. So Burroughs and Pattinson, I'm mispronouncing his name, are the two initial Air Force guys that go out and investigate this. And one of them runs his handle on, brave dude. We have a picture of a polydactyl gloved hand doing that. There it is. And again, these slides are out of order. I'm so sorry, sir. Some stuff's going to get given away. But as we're... so he runs his hand over it. Ooh, crazy stuff. So anyway, Pattinson and Burroughs officially retire. I mean, they're done with the military. They've done their bit a few times over. And they're not even really thinking about this incident anymore. But one thing that stands out, especially to Burroughs, I think it's Burroughs. My notes don't reflect that, and the story doesn't reflect this for some reason when I did my re-research on it. But he remembers also being a victim of all the sleeplessness, where they're having a really hard time focusing. There's this disorientation in general and anxiousness, and it's not letting them sleep that well, and the images keep playing over and over and over and over in their head. And they, so Burroughs digs through his stuff, because he still had some of the files. He had the old notebook he was using. He had the recording he was using. I think he had, either he got it back because the case was largely dismissed, or he made a copy of it. I can't remember which, but something told them to hang on to that evidence. So, as he's going through this stuff, he finds a notebook of his. And this is not the best example, I must add. No matter how many times, I was pretty adamant and argued with AI of what this should look like. But here it is. So imagine this on a small notepad and handwritten. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see what that is. That's a series of ones and zeros. And he hand wrote page after page after page with a small spiral notebook. Ones, zeros, ones and zeros, ones and zeros, and an alphabet in a binary code, basically. And he starts pondering this. It's like, gosh, I don't even remember doing this. And the way it's written like he was not paying attention to the lines because it was skewed. But again, AI wouldn't reflect any of this stuff, and this is as close as I could get. Anyway, so again, use your imagination. This is actually a small spiral field notebook that all these ones and zeros are handwritten on. So in handwritten penmanship. And it's off to a side, like he wasn't paying attention to what the lines were. He wasn't keeping it. He didn't care, He was just flip, flip. And he does not recall doing any of this at all. It's like he hit these weird little mini fugue states, and suddenly he was, just, hey, Burroughs, oh, yeah, and he just closes the notebook, off you go. So, at one point, the ones and zeros end in his notebook, and he's got a few pages left, and then regular old notes on his, because he was an MP, or SP, I guess is in the Air Force we call them SPs. So, his notes kind of pick up after a few of these different things. So he goes like 3 or 4 pages, 1 zeros, 1 zeros, 1 zeros, and then his regular notes just pick back up from investigations and smaller cases he was working on base. And he says, what the heck is that? I don't recall doing this at all. So he calls Patton. It's not Pattinson, but I'll call him Pattinson for now. And he says, hey, Pattinson, you remember anything about this? He says, no, I remember weird dreams, like really freaky weird dreams. I was like, what are you talking about? He says, well, it was kind of after you went missing. Huh? I will state at this point, this is kind of from my memory, which may be a little fuzzy, but nonetheless, this is kind of what happened. So Pattinson tells Burroughs, yeah, you went missing for a little while. And I was kind of out of it for a little while. It's like I knew you weren't there, but I was a little distracted and wobbly myself. I couldn't even figure out which way was up, really. And I think I even fell asleep at one point. What? You fell asleep on duty? Dude, you were gone on duty. I mean, you went AWOL. Don't give me your crap. So they talk about this a little bit more. And Burroughs hits on the idea. It's like, wow, were we drugged or something? Because we talked to those guys. Apparently, the American government, we later find out, did talk to Burroughs and Pattinson and say nothing happened. Don't talk about it. Don't write about it. Don't sing about it. Don't say it. You forget it. Well, they're good soldiers. They it wasn't until he was digging through things that Burroughs gets reminded of all this, and Pattinson didn't really forget. And he says, yeah, so Burroughs brings up the ones and the zeros. And he says, did you remember me writing these things? I was like, yeah, you were nuts about that. You kept doing it, and I had to keep snapping you out of it because we had work to do. He says, I remember getting snapped out, yeah, like I was daydreaming, but I don't remember actually writing all this stuff down. He says, I barely saw what you were writing, so I don't know about that specifically. But, so if you say you wrote ones and zeros, I believe you, but I never actually saw it. I just remember we weren't supposed to talk about it. He says, yeah, man, this is bugging me, though, because now it's interfering with my day-to-day life here in the here and now. And Pattinson advises him to just, have an extra beer that night and just casually re-forget everything. And Burroughs says, yeah, you're probably right. Well, then Burroughs would find out later that he and Pattinson started having their really vivid dreams again. And they're weird and discordant. And it's like, it's bizarre. Like they're in different weird alien vistas and stuff like that. And they just cannot figure out what's going on. And they keep talking back and forth. I said, I am so freaked out by this. And Pattinson says, I just don't want to deal with it. And Burroughs is a little more, got his handle, a little more, got a little bit more of a handle on it. And he says, you know what? I think I'm going to tackle this a little bit. Pattinson says, remember, they told us to forget about this, so be careful. Okay. So remember, they're retirement age. Okay, they left the military and now they're at retirement age, and all this stuff starts coming back to them. They're kind of weirded out by it. Burroughs goes and sees a regression guy, a hypno regression person, and nope, let's not do that. Sorry, something popped up on my screen here. So he goes under hypnosis, and he tells the doctors, like, listen, I had this experience. I just want to remember more about it. Oh, okay. Fantastic. This will later become, I could be getting the names mixed up. Maybe this is Pattinson the whole time. Could have been, but I remember it being Burroughs for some reason. So he goes in, and he says, okay, I just want to know why I was writing all these ones and zeros down, because it makes no sense. So he gets regressed, and the story he recounts is this. Whilst he and Pattinson were out on patrol doing their thing, that's wrong, out on patrol doing their thing, and they come across the craft, Burroughs recounts an interesting tale. I remember, he says, I remember Pattinson and I were on opposite sides of the craft. And I'm running my hand over it, and there's a slight little static flash of some sort, and suddenly I'm in a different place. And I'm sitting, and everything around me is a weird, I think he said pinkish or purplish color, believe it or not. And I don't know where I'm at, and I'm making out faint little lights here and there, like you might see on a computer console back in the 70s or something, which I found very interesting. But more than anything, that's distracting me are these little teeny tiny lights about the size of half the size of ping pong balls, maybe marbles, that are whirling around in a circle, kind of about him and in front of him. And he's, they're like, do that. He does that a couple of times and waves them off, and he hears a voice. It says, "Do not be afraid. You will not be harmed." "Who is this?" he asks. "We are here to look after the earth, specifically this time." What? I'm sure that's an internal question of his anyway. He doesn't actually say that in his book. He wrote a book about this later. And I think he did. It was in either him or Pattinson. I can't remember which. Anyway, in the story, he's like, this time, he asked something along those questions, like, explain yourself. What do you mean this time? Well, we are here to make sure, these little lights tell him, or the voice in his head tells him, we are here to make sure that time doesn't go askew and that we stay on this path. Because without this path and without time continuing in this line, we may experience an alternate future. And we want to be part of the main timeline, not a disparate or separate quantum timeline. He doesn't use the word quantum. The voice doesn't anyway. I'm just trying to articulate that. So, again, do not be afraid. We're just maintaining the timeline, basically. And, excuse me. He said, Burroughs is about to respond and suddenly he's outside again. And Pattinson is on the other side of the ship, more or less where he left him. Kind of wobbly and leaning against the trees. And, oh, there you are. Come on, we got to get back to base. And when they get back to base, they get chewed out because they've been an hour without reporting. So now there's missing time. So what looks like what should it take them maybe a couple hours in general to report, took them something longer, like 4 to 5 hours. And command was saying, what's going on? Now, they didn't remember any of these things. It's like, Pattinson was a little wobbly, and we got a little turned around, I guess, and here we are. But we're back, It's like, all right, give your report, yada, 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 yada. So, what? So he comes out of the hypnoregression, and his counselor plays back the tape for him, and says, wait a minute, we never got to the ones and zeros. He says, yeah, dude, you never got there. Every time I asked about it, you told this story or continued on with this story. You refused to talk about the ones and zeros, and I didn't want to press you. Well, end of session. So he's got to say, dude, we have to do this again. I need more answers. Okay, great. We'll figure out what's going on. So they get back into another session a week or two later, and Burroughs goes under, and he starts recounting the exact same story. Never mind the psychologist or the hypnotherapist has said, no, tell me about the ones and zeros. And he just won't, Burroughs answer for whatever reason. It's blocked even at the hypnotic level. So they come, the session ends, and it's like, did I tell you? Nope, but I have an idea. this looks like binary code, and I got a friend who deals with binary code, who's a computer programmer, could probably tell you what all this means. Fantastic. Hands over, makes copies of his notebook, hands it to the hypnotherapist, who hands it to his friend, gets back to him maybe a month later, and it turns out it was a series of mathematically perfect. If you go around the equator of the Earth, there are these hot points, these points of focus, vortexes if you prefer, around the Earth, and that's what these ones and zeros were. They were basically a map telling Burroughs and whoever else broke the code about where these things were on the map. And it doesn't start there, but the Giza pyramids are marked, and a few other very interesting things around the world along those parallels are marked. And it goes on either side of the equator of the Earth, this zigzag. And, it's like, what does that mean? Having the Giza pyramids marked is interesting. But that could be a power flow point if you want to believe in ancient societal stuff and how they had electricity or a version of electricity. So there's that. But it seemed to mark out these weird power points all over the globe along the equator. Very interesting stuff. So he still doesn't know what to make of this, and Burroughs says, gosh, does this mean anything? Hypnotherapist says, I'm a hypnotherapist. I couldn't even tell you what it means. All I can tell you is that you had an experience that you believe actually happened. And, the ones and the zeros, that's computer code. They can't really lie. It is what it is. Even if what was put down may in itself be, a malleable truth. Nonetheless, at least one of those points to the Giza pyramids, and where the other points point to also significant things. And I'm sorry, I can't remember what they were, but there was a few things that lined up. I think one of them would end up lining up with the Göbekli Tepe, which is kind of interesting. Although I don't know that the latitude is right, but anyway. So this was a map of some sort across the globe that pointed to very, very interesting ancient sites. And it was just amazing. I think he writes a book about all this, and he continues to investigate it a little bit. And he actually, I hit the wrong button again. And I'm sorry, I should have included this. Again, these things are way up. That was supposed to be a Geiger counter. And why AI put the Earth here, I don't know. These are lights in the forest, not Earth. Anyway. Intense Soldier, the Halt Memo. Okay. So one thing that kept cropping up in early investigations when Burroughs went back, because he went back to the Rendlesham area to try and get answers. Because this was the thing for him. And one of the things that cropped up for him, because remember, he's an investigator, he's looking for the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And one of the things that came to light, no pun intended, were, okay, could we have been seeing a lighthouse beam shining through the forest, creating weird refraction, yada, 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 yada. Because there was a lighthouse by this coastal town, I think. And because Rendlesham's not too far from the coast. And it turns out this thing was beyond the curvature of the Earth. So you couldn't see the lighthouse. But for it lighting up the back of a hill once in a while, and it was so dim and distant, it didn't really pan out. Never mind, that was one of the things that the Defense Ministry actually floated as an idea. Oh, you're probably seeing the lighthouse over at such and such. Nope. So he shot that down, which I was happy for. This is another version of, AI does weird things. Anyway, and we're back to the lights. So he actually burrows or patents. Again, I'm not, still unclear as to who did what, or who these people, whether it was Burroughs or Pattons. But I seem to recall it being Burroughs, and I will restate that. I'm sorry, I'm a broken record about that, but he goes back to the town and say, what did you guys experience back then? Because I had weird dreams. Did you have weird dreams? Oh, yeah, we had weird dreams. So he starts doing his own investigation, piecing together all these different things that happened roughly at the same time, including lights in the sky of different colors performing bizarre acts in the sky that no jet, no civilian plane, no military craft whatsoever that they knew of could actually perform. I mean, severe turns, start and stops, propulsing away at incredible speeds and then stopping on a dime. No sound from these things whatsoever. No hum, nothing. And no visible signs of propulsion like we have in all of our more modern craft. So we're definitely dealing with something outside of the norm. Burroughs comes to discover. No kidding. And he concludes that he finds he comes to an interesting conclusion in that Burroughs says that his belief was, while these UFOs and other things have performed these bizarre, aerial acrobatics and affected the population of 2 Air Force bases and a town to the point to where nearly everybody was having weird dreams and unexplained anxiety and all that fun stuff. It was his regressed recall of what he saw and felt and heard in the craft. And well, he assumes he was inside the craft, and he says it was bizarre because it was kind of like, and the Brits would especially appreciate this, any sci-fi person would especially appreciate this. He says it was kind of like the TARDIS. It was larger on the inside. So even though he was sitting and the roof wasn't too far above him, that craft, even if the guy was sitting, would not be able to accommodate a person. It wasn't big enough. So that was kind of fun. That was a fun little side point. So continue the theme from there. So it was what was said to him that really stood out more than anything. And this is what my takeaway is too. We are here, this voice or these lights or whatever they were said, we are here to protect time, to make sure Earth stays on its current trajectory in the temporal sense. And I don't know. Burroughs always walked away with a sense of hope when it came to that type of thing. So he would say something to the effect of, it wasn't fear that gripped me during that moment. It was relief. And at the same time, a little bit of warmth, and familiarity. He mentioned that too, familiarity. And it was that he heard a hopeful message coming back, not the usual stuff that we get from aliens sometimes, which I think might be kind of influenced by, dare I say, personal socio-political motives, where we hear a lot of abductees who are voices for the aliens sometimes, say, oh, you're doing bad to the earth, stop doing this, you're not ready, you're too young, you're still being childish about a lot of things. And you know what? I submit that that is a correct analysis. However, I feel like I'm being, when I hear these reports from those abductees who are friends of the aliens and what have you, I feel like I'm being scolded. And when I feel like I'm being scolded, I feel like rebelling. Not that I'm looking to throw toxic waste in a lake or anything like that. No, not at all. But, you know, don't give me problems, give me solutions. I'm that kind of person. And maybe that's just a military leftover. I really don't know. But, I mean, that makes sense. But, excuse me. Here's where the Rendlesham case really, truly, for me, as an investigator and as an individual, deviates. Instead of being scolded by the aliens, we are given a ray of hope. We are here to ensure that Earth stays on, on its path in the temporal sense. We are here to make sure that Earth continues on as it is because it's required so that, there's prosperity in the future, presumably for the human race. Now, while he didn't see any people, I'm under the impression, and this is just an impression, and I grant you I'm more this is kind of coming from a creative space for me, but at the same time, I think there's a philosophy that supports this idea, and that is that these particular aliens, and it's not the first time we've seen this kite-like craft, by the way, and I have come to call them time kites because there was a similar craft engaged in the middle of the desert by a recent sergeant, retired Army, and out near Edwards. Could be. I'm probably wrong about that. I think it was in an Air Force base, but it was outside of an Air Force base on a lonesome road, and he gets stopped by this craft. And it's basically the same thing. It looks like a kite. Big, about, same measurements as what the guys at Rendlesham saw. And he sees the underside of it because it's being loaded into a larger craft. That's kind of cool. And he sees the underneath of it, and it has familiar, like, ports that you would see for data, for example, and kind of like the Boogosphere. You know how the Boogosphere has that chipset looking thing on the top of it with the circuitry? I saw something similar to that. And he's a sharpshooter, range master, so he's got the eyes and the recognition to know what a lot of this stuff really kind of looks like. But I digress. The message, I think, is what's key. And it's positive from my perspective. It says we have a future. And we're on a good path. Maybe those out there trying to deviate us from this better path for humanity, and maybe it doesn't look like the best path right now, but I have perhaps a blind, but a confidence that we as humans across this earth are actually on the right, larger path toward a better, at least more advanced future where we are able to send machines back in time to ensure temporal continuity. So, absorb that for a second or two. And that's kind of where the Rendlesham Forest thing ends, but not really, because it keeps coming up. It has since been called the Roswell of The Brits, the British Roswell, which is, wow. Our Roswell wasn't even that fascinating. I mean, it was, but I mean, the the backpedaling of Roswell and the way this, they started to tell us all the truth, and then they said, you know what? Just kidding. It was a weather balloon. I don't know. And did anyone really buy it back then? I don't know. It was, 47. So maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But enough people, I think, called BS on the whole thing that they said, yeah, something else is going on. But as we transition from Rendlesham into another category, which is, a little more personal, we're going to briefly talk about TOL and how that kind of ties into everything. Because I've been a paranormal investigator since 2011. TOL has been in my, whatchamacallit, in my, how do I put that? Library, for personal library for quite a long time, since 1994, 5, 6. So, well, I think it's 95 actually. So it's been in my consciousness for a very long time. And as I became more accepting of the paranormal, I guess is the way to put it, and actually start investigating this stuff, it became more and more apparent to me that the story of TOL had to also, the Trident of Light, I might add, because TOL actually means a few different things, but mine's better, if I do say so myself. So as we, whoops, no, I hit the wrong button again. There we go. So as TOL matures and is edited and all that fun stuff, and as it progresses forward, which is the plan, we are going to investigate these things in the show, which is going to be a bunch of fun. And we're going to learn a lot about the alien world and what the basic understanding is. It'll be fictitious, obviously, and there'll probably be a great deal of license that has to come into play in order to make that really kind of work, as a story. I mean, when you tell a story, you have to tell it with a degree of, I guess you have to tell it with a degree. Okay, sorry, that was talking in my ear here for a second there. Let me pause it. There we go. No, pause it, Tim. Sorry. Sorry, I'm having issues with my thing over here. There we go. So as TOL becomes more and more prevalent, I guess, in the public eye, which we're working toward, we are also looking to, nope, this is not working for me. There it is. Have a handle on the real stuff that we know. To say that we know, only a few people really have a clear idea, but I want to include the tall whites, the Nordics, the reptilians, all these cool alien creatures, like from a story perspective, where we have an opportunity to share not only the story of TOL, but did that pop up again? I'm sorry, I have no screen right now. There we go. But to have maybe a slightly more realistic grasp on, and this is playing in silent in the background as I do it, a slightly more realistic grasp on the actual culture of what's out there in alien world as we explore these monster hunters, which will later become much, much more. So yeah, we have monsters here on Earth that we have to hunt and all that fun stuff, but it's also we have a responsibility to provide a sort of, I'm trying to get that just so right there, a responsibility. Sorry, this thing's in the way. A responsibility to not only tell a story that means something, but to tell a story that actually reflects the so far reported reality of at least our part of the galaxy. You know, again, the Nordics, the tall whites, and all those guys. So I think TOL is really going to be at the forefront of a lot of interesting things, and maybe they'll be able to say, oh, that's, we'll put this up there to add to the disinformation campaign. What if I don't let that happen? Wow, that's getting dangerous right now. And I like being alive. Do not, something happens to me, it was done on purpose. But I digress. So we have a story, the Trident of Light. They are monster hunters, at least initially. And they have amongst them a person with a very, very, shall we say, not a deep, dark secret, but certainly a secret that's going to be pivotal to not only opening up the understanding of the characters who are involved, as on a larger scale, but certainly it'll allow the audience to take a look at and perceive what we have been told by various and sundry witnesses who have come forward and said, yeah, there is that out in the universe. There is this, that, and the other thing that have been here on Earth for a very long time and all that fun stuff. So the stories are going to reflect a lot of those truths based on the truths told to us, via Senate committees or personal anecdotes or, anecdotes shared over the air on these paranormal type shows to explore this type of thing. So my goal with TOL is to really kind of put real, for lack of a better term, I guess, real faces to real alien, real alien faces to real alien entities that we experience as humans from time to time. Sometimes just because, and sometimes on purpose, and sometimes by accident. And that's what the TOL really is about. So I open it up to you. We're going to kind of do a little baby open mic night here. I gotta stop saying baby. Mini open mic night. If those of you watching want to hop on into the chat on either YouTube at paranormal_insight, or I forget the UPRN one all of a sudden, but look up the UPRN. I'm live on there right now. You can't miss me. Hop into the chat there. That's fine. I got one person in the chat right now. That's Heidi. Heidi, got any questions for me? I'll wait. If you don't worry about it. One thing we're exploring in the TOL as well is not only the alien question, but the cryptid question. So it'll be a ton of fun. We're gonna delve into, they're from this place. Like there's one guy on the team who just kind of knows it because he dealt with them from a different perspective, So it'll be a lot of fun. And it's not serious drama. It's, we played a little tongue in cheek, sometimes, not all the time. If you like Supernatural or Evil Dead, you're kind of in the right wheelhouse as far as the vibe of the script and the story goes. So it's gonna be a lot of fun when that happens. I don't know that I'll be able to do the show once we get rolling, but I'm certainly gonna try. I'll tell you what, lots of pre-records and stuff, or I'll be guests on other people's shows, or I'll have a guest host, or we'll figure something out. Hey Heidi, do you want a guest host? Paranormal Insight? I'm teasing. If you want to, that'd be cool. But can you talk for 2 hours about the same thing for ever and ever? Let me know about that. No questions from Heidi yet, so I'm going to invite all of you once again to hop on the chat if you can. And, yeah, ask me some questions. We got about anything we discussed today, not just TOL, but Rendlesham, about the McAlister case, which is, wow. I can only imagine McAlister's fears, really. And I don't know that I wouldn't do the same thing, especially back in the day, because no one wants to be called off. No one wants to be called crazy, you know. So, and we're coming at this, we're kind of in this disclosure type of deal right now, and we have been for the past 10, 20 years, maybe 10 to 15. But certainly the last decade, where that stigma is washed away, which I'm thankful for. So there is that. Again, we have question. The lines are open, as they say, although it's just chat. If you want to hop on the air, I could probably send you a link. Yes, I can. And we can share, we can have you on the show to ask me questions, which is fun. So if you do have questions for me, come on down. If not, that's okay. I hit the end of my notes. So I got 20 minutes to kill, and it's all on you guys. But if you want to know more about TOL, again, I'm still building the site. I'm one man doing the job of 20 people, honestly. So it's not for a lack of wanting to hire someone else. It's a lack of being able to hire someone else to do all this stuff. So I really have to get, and it's the holidays. And anyway, I digress. But we are going to, it's almost, I don't want to cut off early. I might get yelled at for doing that. So I'll just keep blathering. One thing I do want to actually touch on, though, is, let's see here. Let me go back over to, is it still up? Yeah, it is. Let's see here. To the, nope. Okay. Nope, not there either. Man. Okay. Nope. Sorry, I'm trying to find a slide. Okay, I guess the slide isn't there that I thought I had. I was going to touch on, another point of the Rendlesham case. It's my neck that went wonky. Excuse me. But, alas, I don't have a visual to really kind of cue into what I'm wanting to talk about. And it's a little abstract. But, yeah, if you want to talk, whatever it is you want to talk, I'm more than happy to talk to you about it. One of the things I wanted to share as well is, sorry, good times, dead air. One of the things I wanted to share about TOL as well, that we do have an interesting opportunity to have not only the oh gosh, I kind of goofed that up a little bit. The opportunity to tell one story, but given that this is an international team, international not team, organization, we will have an opportunity to tell the story of TOL from various perspectives, which I find fantastic. And I mean, if you have the wherewithal, even if it's on a low budget, and you have the wherewithal to do 5-6 episodes at maybe a half hour each, and you want to tell the story of a TOL team in Scotland, since we were talking about Scotland earlier, yeah, and you want to include your local folklore and monsters and stuff like that, yeah, I would be willing to open the license to have you guys come in and tell your story and be backed by my production company. As far as, again, having the rights and licenses to use our stuff, I'd send you opening credit collateral, kind of like what we have here in the the story where, back in the day, and then this happens, and then, up comes Scotland, which is cool, and go from there. I think this is 2025. Yeah, it does. There we go. So so that is one fun perspective I wanted to share right now. I'm willing to make this a very international space and have various countries provide their stars and or fans or whatever, and you do your best, man. You send it to me, and if you need help with special effects, maybe we can help with some special effects at one point. Don't get too elaborate. Again, we're still in the planning stage, so I'm just kind of spinning ideas right now. But the idea would be to actually get this out there, and like I said, there's a TOL team in every major city. If I didn't say that before. So in the story, there's a TOL team in every major city. Bangladesh, Moscow, even. Yeah. I mean, the great thing about the TOL is it doesn't have borders the way the rest of the world does, because the idea is that we're unified on the mission to rid the world as much as we can of all these monstrous evils that are looking to attack and or consume humanity at the more visceral, basic level, as food. People are not food, people are people, okay? So, and that's the basic philosophy. So if, again, Vietnam, Korea's blown up right now in the television world. So, we got something out there. TOL team in Korea totally would work, and that'd be great. And we probably get the titles done in Korean and all of it, wherever you're at, really. I mean, it wouldn't be hard these days to change the titles and stuff like that. So I think the TOL idea has a lot of merit. There are stories all over the world, and when it comes to especially our mythologies and what we face, sometimes even the here and now, like we have, I wouldn't say Bigfoot's a monster per se, but he's certainly a curiosity. And we're learning, even if it's not official, we're learning more and more and more about them. People are not food. Your friends are good. Not, I think you said it, Google autocorrect. Not, your friends are not food. No, they are not. Heidi made a mention in the chat. That was pretty funny. So, yeah, we're getting to yeah, for sure. She made a little ha-ha, and I agreed with her. So again, the idea, and by the way, since it's just one team in the U.S., different U.S. cities, absolutely. TOL Colorado or Denver or wherever is your, I don't know. I don't want you to give away your town, Heidi, but let's say Denver for now. Reno, TOL Reno. They could literally be everywhere. The franchise is limitless, realistically. And it's not to say we can't have the foreign guys in like Bangladesh or even China, dude. I honestly, I know China's not economically our best friend right now, but the people themselves, they love this stuff. You know, that's really what it's all about. We're kind of unity through creativity. I think this is really the best way to go. So, I'd love to have TOL Beijing. That would be great, dude. They're taking on all their different monsters. There's the hopping vampires, for example. That'd be great. So unity through creativity, that's kind of the goal of TOL. We're looking to get the Trident of Light across the globe, bringing us stories from across the globe, where we can really share our not only our innermost fears but our innermost hopes. I think that's a really cool idea. Oh, and Heidi agrees with me. Thank you so much, Heidi. I'm glad you like that idea. So we're narrowing down to our last few 10 minutes, and I've been blathering about my own project. But that's okay. One of the other things we'd like to explore in the TOL as we get to the close of the show is having the ability to do a little profit sharing, because, if it really doesn't matter how well received a given global episode would be received. We'd like to have little dolls made up for Team Scotland or Team Colorado or Team Beijing or whatever. I thought that'd be kind of cool. Little interactive things for everyone to enjoy. Be they bobbleheads or be they actual little, what are those called? Not plushies. The little dolls they used to have. Like action figures or something like that. I think that'd be great. Louder for those in the back. In case you missed it, unity through creativity. So TOL has a ton of potential out there to not only make the world a better place through creativity, but to unify us, I think. Sherry's here. Yeah, you are late. That's okay. Enjoy the replay. I was just touting my own project here a little bit. no biggie. But and that the general theme of TOL is unity through creativity, and that there would be the potential to have the TOL in various places, not only across the country but across the globe, because each town, as I was reminding everyone, each major city has a TOL team in my little TOL universe. So the Trident of Light is everywhere, and they're there to help. So it'd be great to see all the different mythological creatures crop up that are the baddies, and have the TOL team take them down, to protect the people. Because as I mentioned earlier, people are not food. And that would be the goal of the monsters, to make a meal of innocence. So, I think I blathered enough. I'm going to say good day on this one. Or it could be good night where you're at. I really don't know. But I want to thank those of you in the chat for joining us. Those watching at home, thank you for joining us as well. My name is Tim Sedano. This is Paranormal Insight. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. It'll be repeats because it's the holidays. And Merry Christmas to you too, Sherry, and to Heidi, and happy holidays much gratitude from me too. Absolutely. I love you guys. You're fantastic. And happy holidays in general, and happy new year in general to everyone out there in the world. So, let's help bring TOL around. Keep watching that video. I'll have more to share in a few weeks on that front. And if I don't see you before then, because I think I'm showing up on someone's show in a little bit, I'll see you guys in the new year. So happy 2026 when it comes around, and know that I love you. Take care, everyone. My name's Tim. This is Paranormal Insight. Goodbye for now. If you have a paranormal experience that you would like to discuss on the show, please email us at paranormal.insight.podcast@gmail.com. That's paranormal.insight.podcast@gmail.com.